Good morning. Our purpose is going to be the same as last class when we met on Monday. So we're going to continue to look at the effects of operant conditioning, and then we're going to switch and look at reviewing conditioning and being able to differentiate between classical and operant, and then looking at real life applications of conditioning. Just a few announcements. Our test is going to be the 21st, and that's the learning exam. And as a reminder, I do have review time built into the schedule. So we'll review on Tuesday. I think that's what it makes. And then the retake for sensation and perception is this Friday. You can either come in at 7:20 or during AACP. So I do need you to sign up on the Google form that you will be retaking, so I know which targets you're taking and what time you're coming in. And I did post the FRQ retake in that folder as well. So let's continue looking at the effects of operant conditioning. And what we're going to finish up with here is number 5, schedules of reinforcement. So number 4 was types of reinforcers. Now what we're looking at is when and how often are we going to be reinforcing behavior. So the first part is we can do so continuously. And what continuous means is that every time the behavior is demonstrated, the subject gets a reinforcement. So every time the dog sits, it gets a treat. Okay, now most things in our lives are not going to be continuous. They're going to be partial or intermittent. So here I have a picture of a little boy fishing. Okay, every time he casts does not mean that he is going to get a fish. Okay, so he may not be reinforced for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Okay, a server, okay, or when you get paid, is going to be looking more that you might get paid every 2 weeks. So obviously a server does get tips, but they also get a salary. So what's going to happen then is they're going to get reinforced every couple weeks. So let's first take a look at fixed versus variable. So fixed is a steady amount. So you would know when you're getting reinforced. So an example of this would be getting paid every 2 weeks. Variable is sporadic. So you don't know when the reinforcer is coming. So it could come on the third time, the fifth time, the 10th time. A person doesn't really know, or the subject doesn't know. Then you have ratio versus interval. So when we see ratio, this is going to be the number of responses from the organism. And this is going to mean that the organism actually has to perform some type of behavior in order to get reinforced. So it's not just dependent on waiting for it to happen. So this would be a rat has to press a lever, okay, in order to get food. A pigeon has to peck at a disc in order to get food. The organism actually has to do something. And then interval is going to be based on time. Now, when I do the time questions, I try to be pretty obvious with it saying days, weeks, things like that, but that isn't always the case. So if I'm waiting based on time, okay, let's say it's the 2 weeks that I'm working, okay, I can work 3 times, I can work 8 times, I'm still going to get reinforced at 2 weeks. It doesn't matter how many times I work. So now what we do is we combine these. Okay, so here's the examples. So I can take fixed ratio. And an example of fixed ratio is going to be a rat pressing a lever 5 times and then getting food. So the rat has to physically press the lever, and it knows every 5 times, on the 5th time, it will get the food. The fixed interval then is going to be a set amount of time. So getting paid every 2 weeks is an example of this. And then variable ratio is going to be gambling. So with variable ratio, if we can picture somebody on a slot machine, okay, and what they have to do is they have to push the button to put their bet in. When they push the button, they might get rewarded or reinforced with money. Okay, but they could push the button a second time, lose money. Third time, lose money. Fourth time, lose money. And then the 5th time, they get reinforced with money. The variable ratio produces the strongest response because what the organism is thinking is maybe the next time I'm going to get reinforced or the next time. And it's dependent upon the individual actually engaging in the behavior. It's not just waiting. on time. And then the variable interval is going to be sporadic, and it's based on time. So an example I have here is waiting for a snowstorm. Okay, I don't know which day the snowstorm is going to come. Okay, it could come in a week. It's actually coming today. Okay, but let's say if I'm a skier, okay, I don't know when I will be reinforced, okay, with being able to go skiing, because I'm waiting on the snow, and there's nothing I can do to help speed up the snow. It doesn't matter how many times I wax my skis, snow is going to come on whatever day it wants to come. Okay, so these four, again, are all examples of partial reinforcement. And what we're looking at is, with partial reinforcement, is we're not going to be reinforcing every time. When we go back and we look at that continuous, a lot of times a trainer is going to start out by training continuously. So for example, a dog sitting, okay, you want to teach that sit means when they put their butt on the ground. And in order to do that, you have to continuously reinforce. Once they've learned that's what sit means, then you can start doing partial reinforcement for the dog. So here we have a chart, and on the x-axis is time, and then on the y-axis is cumulative number of responses. And I just want to point out here, okay, that variable ratio, okay, produces the strongest, okay, and the quickest response. Fixed ratio will also do that. And again, both these ratios, okay, are going to have, it's because it's dependent on the organism's behavior. They physically have to do something in order to get the reinforcement. And you notice with interval, it takes longer, okay, and the response is never quite as strong because it's not dependent on the organism's behavior. It's just dependent on waiting it out. So what I'm going to have you do here is I want you to watch this video on Skinner, and he talks about the schedules of reinforcement, and he also talks a little bit about his theory at the end, right, and just the role of behavior. And then what you'll do is you're going to look at numbers 11 or pages 11 and 12 in the learning packet. So I want you to do page 11 first, then check your answers. Okay, and then page 12 is going to be harder because it's not going to list it as specifically. Okay, for our exam, my prompts are going to be more like page 11. Okay, page 12 is just a little bit more advanced, but I still would like you to work on that. And then if you have any questions, make sure to star them, and then I'll go over them with you on Friday. And the answer key can be found here.